Hi everyone, we have got another jam-packed video for you today on this glorious Friday. Celtic are back tomorrow. We're in Scottish Cup action against Alloa Athletic. It's the fourth round. We're going to be finding out all about the League One side in this video, chatting to one of their supporters near the end of the video, as well as doing our predicted 11 and all that kind of stuff. But before we get on to all of that juicy stuff, we've got the roundup for you. We hope you enjoyed our insight into Matt O'Reilly that was on the channel yesterday with Kai Jones. He was certainly getting rave reviews, it's fair to say, from you guys and girls. So if you've not come across that video yet, I would certainly urge you to check that out if you want to find out more about O'Reilly. At the time of recording, O'Reilly hadn't officially been announced as a Celtic player, but we did get that confirmation just before 8:30 yesterday. O'Reilly signing a 4.5-year deal or until the end of season 25-26. God knows where we'll all be at that stage. He'll wear the number 33 shirt, which was last worn by Hatem El Hamed. Beram Kayal, another Israeli, also wore it. But by far the most famous number 33 Celtic have ever had was Marvin Comper. So plenty to live up for Matt O'Reilly. O'Reilly's initial Celtic TV interview was pretty good by those interviews kind of standards. You don't tend to learn too much about the players. You get the old cliches trodden out about, the minute I heard from Celtic, it was a no-brainer for me, and all that kind of stuff a new signing has to say. But there was actually some interesting stuff from O'Reilly. The bit that stood out for me was when he commented that when he goes to a club, it has to be a club that's a good fit for him and suits his way of playing, and he isn't the kind of player who will just go for money. So it seems, from his point of view, that Celtic is a really good fit for the way he plays football. And clearly, Ange wouldn't have signed him if the same wasn't true for us as well. So it's great to have Matt O'Reilly at the club. It's kind of come out of nowhere, but sometimes those are the best signings. And you often judge a new signing on what his old club are saying about him. And MK Dons fans absolutely loved him. I've not seen a bad word said about him at all. So I'm really excited and have high hopes for seeing how O'Reilly can do at Celtic. In more comical news, Jota has scooped the Premiership Player of the Month award for November. Yes, you heard that correctly, November. It's not as if we're nearly in February or anything, lads. Just you take your time to get that one sorted. In other news revealed by the SPFL yesterday, President Kennedy has been assassinated in Dallas, Texas, and a large passenger liner has sunk in the Atlantic Ocean after hitting an iceberg. In other news, slightly more up-to-date news, Tom Rogic's solo goal against Dundee United has been named the December goal of the month. I would certainly suggest that will be a contender for goal of the season. We won't see many better, certainly in the league this season. In slightly more negative Tom Rogic news, but not totally unexpected, he will miss our upcoming matches against Hearts at Tynecastle and Dundee United and Rangers at Celtic Park after being called up by Australia earlier today. Well done to 67 Hail favourite Ryan McGowan for also finding his way into the Socceroos squad. In terms of our Japanese contingent, we won't have to wait long to find out what the situation is with them. 5 a.m. Saturday Scottish time is when you should be setting your alarm clocks for to find out what the damage is. We are not expecting Kyogo or Gucci to be named in the squad, but who knows. But Hatate and Maida are certainly in the mix. I'm just looking forward to finding out and as I say, seeing what the damage is and seeing what we do from that point onwards. Now, a couple of other wee admin issues that I saw earlier in the week while I was actually on holiday. I had a great time. Thanks very much for asking, by the way. The SPFL have confirmed the dates for next season and how things will work out. Next season is going to be very different because we have our first ever Winter World Cup in Qatar in, I think, November and December, kind of starts midway through November, ends just before Christmas. The Scottish season will start on Saturday the 30th of July, so that's when the first Premiership fixtures will be, with the league breaking after 16 matches from November the 12th until December the 17th. The World Cup final is actually scheduled for December the 18th, so Celtic will return back to league action on the same weekend as the final. Not sure how that's going to work for the likes of David Turnbull and Callum McGregor, who will obviously be playing in the World Cup final for Scotland at that stage. Maybe we'll have to request a postponement. The final week of the league season is May the 27th, which is a fortnight later than this season. So the league season is going to be going on for much longer, but obviously with a break, a larger break in the middle. The only other thing to mention from the SPFL's release was that the semis and the final of the Premier Sports Cup will be held back until after Christmas next season due to them not having as much time in the first half of the season. So it's going to be very different next season. Also, on the subject of things becoming different very soon, FIFA have announced some new regulations around loan players that will begin from July the 1st. Now, a lot of it isn't too relevant from a Celtic point of view. I think reading between the lines, the main reason for these new regulations is to stop clubs like, dare I say it, Man City, Chelsea, hoarding players and then just loaning out 20 players a season. I think Chelsea have got about 20 players out on loan at the moment, and they won't be able to do that in times to come because these regulations that start, as I say, in the 1st of July, the key takeaways are that loans will now have a maximum term of 1 season. So no more Paddy Roberts 18-month loan deals for Celtic. I'm unsure if clubs will still be able to get round this by just doing separate deals. So you would maybe just have Paddy Roberts for 12 months, and then when that's run up, you would say, oh, can we get him for another 6 months? So there's ways clubs can probably get round it, but you won't be able to get 18-month loan deals anymore. They'll be scrapped. Teams will only be able to loan out up to 3 players to one specific club at any one time, and also only be able to bring in up to 3 players from one specific club at any one time. So basically, Celtic couldn't loan out 4 players to Motherwell at the same time, and we couldn't bring in 4 players from Man City at any one time. You could only have a maximum of 3. I don't think we've ever had 4 players in on loan from one team or loaned out 4 players to one single team, but that's going to be the law anyway. And finally, most interestingly, I think, the numbers of players loaned out by a club will also be reduced over time, going down to a maximum of 6 by 2024. However, under 21 and club-trained players won't count. Celtic currently have, I think, 10 or 11 players out on loan. So if those players were over 21 and not club trained, we would obviously not be able to do that. Hopefully that hasn't confused you too much. We'll move on now to more immediate matters and tomorrow's Scottish Cup tie against Alloa Athletic. We always want to find out as much as we can on the channel when it comes to upcoming opposition for Celtic, especially when it's a team we're maybe not quite as familiar with, and that's certainly the case with Alloa Athletic. So yesterday, I caught up with Kieran Mooney, who is a commentator on Alloa's Wasp TV. He also has a number of journalistic roles at Alloa and is a big fan of the club as well. So the ideal guest. Now, I'll be honest, I often do these wee segments, these interviews, a day or two in advance and feed them into the final video. And usually you won't notice. I even try and match up my clothes from time to time so that it just looks... I think continuity is the kind of Hollywood term for it. I certainly don't use that. And then from time to time I have a wee nightmare. So be prepared for this video. In about 5-10 seconds, I'm going to grow my hair a bit longer and maybe even have a bit of stubble on my face. Now, I started by asking Kieran about the interesting fact that Alloa Athletic have more players away at the African Cup of Nations than Celtic.
Yeah, it's probably my favourite story of the season. Nando's, that's his nickname. He's been quite the character since he's come in. He's well liked in the lower leagues, so it was some story when he got the call up. Unfortunately, he never came off the bench, and I think that's them out. So it doesn't quite make the history books, but it's still some story for him to be there, and I think he's absolutely loved it.
They had a bit of a struggle in the competition. They finished bottom of their group, a draw and 2 losses. They didn't even score a goal, so it wasn't the best competition for Guinea-Bissau. Is he going to be back, do you think, for this game?
We're not sure. I think it's going to be hard for him to get back, and I'm not sure about the quarantine rules. He might be there. We don't know, to be honest. I would imagine that we're planning without him, and if he does come back, it will be on the bench. We've got quite a settled defence since he's been away, so it might take him a game or two to get back into the swing of things anyway.
We had Effie Ambrose about a decade ago playing for Nigeria, and he actually won the African Cup of Nations, and Neil Lennon rushed him back for a game against Juventus, I think 24 hours later, and he, I think, gave away a penalty, maybe even sold another goal as well. So you're probably wise just keeping things as they are. What about Saturday? How are you feeling? How are Alloa fans feeling about the game?
I think it's mixed bag. I think it's a welcome break from the league. The league has been absolutely, disastrous so far. So I think just to get away from that, have the TV there, have the big sellout crowd now, which is great. The restrictions have lifted, and a chance to just have a free hit against Celtic. It's a very much welcome break, and fingers crossed that we can up the levels, because it hasn't quite been our season so far.
Are you surprised the game's been played at your home ground, that you maybe didn't see an opportunity to get some more fans in?
No, I'm not too surprised, to be fair. I think the owner came out and said he owed it to the people of Alloa, like the community. It's a very much a community club, so I think taking it away from that stadium would have been slightly unfair. I think we did take it away from Alloa last time we played Celtic 20 odd years ago, but since then, in the last decade, we've had Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, and it's been a good occasion, and we don't want the Celtic fans to miss out on the famous pie and roll. So it's a win-win.
Pie and roll?
Yeah, it's a pie and it's in a roll, and it's as simple as that. And it's, if you're going on Saturday, don't have your tea, just have a couple of pies and rolls. It's outstanding.
Well, what kind of pie are we talking? Scotch pie?
Scotch pie in a roll. It's nothing fancy. Get a bit of brown sauce, bit of red sauce on it. It's a speciality from Joyce in the pie shop.
Excellent. Well, anyone who's going on Saturday, there's a wee tip from Kieran for you. It's been a disappointing season, hasn't it, for Alloa so far? You're 8th in League One, 5 wins, 7 draws, 9 defeats. Is Barry Ferguson under a bit of pressure?
That puts it nicely. No, he's not under pressure from the board and from the club. The word from the club is that they're fully backing him. They're happy with how he's doing. It's a transition period. We knew that. I think it's pretty universal what the fans think of the way that the team's performing. He's got a big budget. He inherited a big squad, and it's not quite been what we wanted. We started off wanting to challenge for the title. Then it was the playoffs, and now we're closer to the relegation spot. So he is under pressure, and if you can't go 9 games in the league without a win, it's impossible to avoid criticism for that.
What's the big issue been then? What if you were to kind of say put your finger on one thing this season?
It's a hard one. I think it's a lot of change at once, and I think it's a lot of unnecessary change. We had a good squad in the Championship. Peter Grant had us playing good football. We weren't outclassed by many teams despite being relegated. And I think we probably could have implemented things a little bit slower than we have. Barry's come in with his way of thinking, and he's gone quite heavy-handed on releasing players and bringing in wholesale changes. And for me, I didn't really think that was necessary. I think we could have done half the recruitment that we did in the summer and been okay. And I think that's probably been the problem. It's just all too much, and we don't really score goals, and we leak silly goals. So it's the fundamentals of football, but there's quality players there. So we just need the rub of the green, I think.
Who are the players that we should be looking out for on Saturday then? I think the obvious one Celtic fans will know is Connor Salmon.
Yeah, so Samuel will be starting now. I think the main man for Alloa this season has been Ewan Henderson. He scored 11 goals. He's now back at Hearts for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, not that Ewan Henderson, but the other one. Yeah,
the other one, the striker. So he's been knocking them in for fun this season, and he's put Connor Salmon on the bench. But Samuel will be playing in his absence, so that'll be interesting. He's a nuisance, shall we call him? That's kind of the perfect way to describe him. We've got some quality players in the midfield. I think like Stefan Skugel. Yeah. He's played, he scored goals at Wembley for Sheffield United in the playoffs. He's a player with such flair and ability. Guys like him and Kevin Colley and Stephen Boyd, you're probably looking at them to really give you a bit of magic on Saturday, but ultimately it's going to come down to how resilient the defence is. So it's a lot of pressure on the two centre halves. I think that's the ones that we're going to see the most of, him and the goalkeeper.
Yeah, and just finally, Kieran, is that how the game's going to pan out? Is it going to be Alloa, sitting in defending, making it as difficult as possible for Celtic, and then, from your point of view, hopefully taking your chance when it comes?
I think so. I think we see that when we play in League One. Alloa have always been known as a passing team, good football, but Barry's kind of come in and it's been a lot of counter-attacking football. We've got really pacey players in the wing. We sit in and then we hit teams in the break. So I don't see why that will be any difference when we're, welcoming one of the best teams in the country. We're just going to be really awkward, hard to beat. Just all the tactics, all the time wasting tactics, everything we can to gain some sort of an advantage, and then hopefully it's just that one set piece or whatever that we can latch on.
Yeah, we'll see. Sorry, final question. The pitch, obviously people will maybe speak about that a bit. Is it a good artificial surface? How would you rate it?
No, it's actually, I'm not going to be totally, but this isn't me being totally biased here, but it's a pretty decent pitch. It's fairly new. I think it's only been put in because it was really bad before and it got replaced maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's got some of the widest dimensions that we can possibly get, so it's slick, it's big. I don't really see it being much of a problem for Celtic, to be honest.
And fresh-faced, short-haired Hamish is back. Interesting to hear Kieran chatting about the pitch being decent. Hopefully that bodes well for the team. But what kind of team will we see Ange field tomorrow? Ange did say today in his press conference that he wants players to be ready, and I kind of think we could see him freshening things up a little bit. So without further ado, here is the predicted 11 that I'm going for, and if I get at least 7 of these right, I think I'll be doing very well. Right, Joe Hart in goals, a back four of Anthony Ralston, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Stephen Welsh and Liam Scales. I'm going for Yosuke Ideguchi with Reo Hatate and Tom Rogic in front. James Forrest on the right, Jota on the left, and Georgios Giacomakis up front. Now, a couple of interesting ones in there. Some people may be saying Joe Hart won't start. Oh, wow, that rhymed. Maybe looking for some pain from Scott Bain instead. The thing I did notice is that Joe Hart actually played all 4 of our League Cup ties, including the home game against Wraith Rovers. So I think he will continue in goals tomorrow, given that he'd missed a couple of games at the end of the year there. He also sat out the Betis game as well. So I think Bain has had a few games over the last 6-7 weeks, and I think getting Joe Hart back in that team in a consistent run might be what Ange wants to do. Elsewhere, I think Anthony Ralston's an obvious one to come back in. I think Ideguchi will start the game. I'm relatively sure that Ideguchi will start. I think Ange will want to get him minutes from the start. It'd be great to see Jota there too on the left. And I think GG will start up front. I think Ange really likes this guy and wants to get him a run in the team. How long that goes on for, I don't know. Obviously, Maida's an option now. Kyogo won't be out forever. So hopefully GG can start and take his big opportunity. And who knows, we might get to see our new signing, Matt O'Reilly, off the bench as well. Right, that's us for today. Let's just take a wee look at the latest sub count on the channel before we go. That was at the time of the video going out. So we're certainly firing, soaring beyond 24k. I wonder if we can get to 25k by the time we face Rangers in, just over 10 days' time. If you've recently just found the channel, giving us a sub really does help the channel to grow. So in advance, I will say thank you to you beautiful, beautiful legends. Hope you have a fine Friday night. We're back tomorrow with the Alloa reaction with Ewan.